saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. On to item 3, public comment. Any public comment? No public comment, so we'll move on to 4, committee items. Unless there are any changes, I'd like to motion and support to approve the minutes from February 9th. Motion and support, thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None. Passes unanimously. Second item, item B under committee items is finance. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're presenting the financial statements for the first month of the new fiscal year. So our benchmark is 8.3%. Year-to-date expenditures are at 7.9. However, as I say every quarter, the quarterly transfers are recorded in the second month of each quarter, so obviously it doesn't reflect those expenses. However, if we look at individual departments, they can be above the 8.3%, and that's because in the month of January we had 3 payrolls. So if we look at that as a percent of the total payroll, then our benchmark is 11.5%. So just point that out to keep that in mind when you're looking at the individual expenditures. If we look at the graphs relative to historical trends, we're pretty much on track. The general fund revenue is a little bit above historical averages, and so I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
Good morning, all. We're here today to seek your approval for creating 2 non-union part-time 20-hour per week breastfeeding peer counseling positions in the WIC program. As I've indicated in the staff report, the state is really transitioning these particular positions out of MSU Extension and moving them into WIC programs throughout the state. We have sufficient funds to fund 2 20-hour per week part-time positions in a department, and we think we'll actually be able to provide a much better co-located service with these peer counselors in the health department in the WIC program. So we're seeking your support and be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I saw, I don't have it open right now, but I saw in the financials for this, where does the additional money to pay for it long-term come out of? Like, there was about $2,000. Does it just come out of your personnel budget, or?
Well, we have the ability to, first of all, fund some somewhat less than 20 hours per week in the first startup phase from May through the end of September. But then going beyond that, we'll get $45,000 per year for these funded positions. And there is a kind of a couple $1,000 difference here in the financials that we're showing, but it's primarily related to the indirect costs that we built into our spreadsheet. So typically, we build in, for instance, what's showing here is a 41% indirect rate, and with this particular approach that we're using with 2 part-time positions, we'll actually underspend the $45,000 by about $11,000. So we're going to have plenty of resources to buy anything additional we might need it.
Do you have an average age of who's receiving this education?
Well, typically, within the WIC program, you're looking at new moms, including those who might be teen mothers that are coming into the program, and up to probably about age 35. And so that's the age group that we're talking about that have young children that are at least 0 to 1 years old. That's the target population that we serve.
Okay, I was just wondering. My mother, grandmother, her mother, for some reason, they didn't need this.
I know the money's available. This is such a basic human function. Really, people that don't understand, where we need to spend $45,000 taxpayer money to, I mean, they succeeded in achieving a child all by themselves.
Well, our experience has been in today's world with oftentimes both parents, or in the case of a single mother working, it's really difficult for them to organize and accomplish this very important nutrition-related activity with infants. It's really, I think the statistics and the data show us that over time, it's really important to keep breastfeeding an infant at least through the first year, and the objective is right through the second year. And that really takes a lot of coordination and assistance, and it does help to reduce the obesity rate in children in the community. And I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, as Commissioner Rice stated, his grandmother, mother, and wife somehow survived without doing this, and seems kind of, Commissioner,
Okay, can I,
yes, ma'am.
okay, I popped out 2 kids, and I breastfed both of them. And there are times, yes, it naturally will come out, but you have to figure out, there's a process, Phil. And let me tell you, I loved the lactation nurse, because sometimes as a new mom, if you didn't go to any educational classes and all you did is, get knocked up by your husband and pop out a kid, you don't necessarily know what's happening, okay, with your boob. I'm just saying. And it's nice to have support, because, hey, oh, my boob's hot and it hurts, and it hurts when the baby's nursing. It's good to have those resources. And women pay taxes just as much as men, and I would say that probably a good majority of them would not disagree with me in saying these funds are money's well spent.
Okay.
Phil,
looking for-
careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Commissioner Mahoney.
I've got 4 babies. I didn't pop them out myself, but I witnessed my wife do it, and witnessed her having to go through the struggles of learning how to breastfeed, especially because each baby is different. But I guess my biggest question is, would it be possible for you guys to maybe partner with Allegiance and their lactation nurses that they currently have on staff to maybe reduce the cost of trying to bring some people in to help with the WIC program? Because, I understand that the WIC program is separate from Allegiance, but maybe you guys could, partner with them and, on some of the off time of the lactation nurses that they have up there. Would that be something that's possible, or are you guys in need of someone
look
that's
into it.
on staff?
Yeah, we can look into it.
Okay, looking for a motion and support, direction from the board.
I'll move it.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, GIS. Welcome, Scott.
Well, that's a hard act to follow. I don't think I can go into that level. But what you have before you is, as we did the study session, is for an aerial imagery flight for Jackson County for this spring. It would occur in the next month. If the commission so chooses to approve it. You see in the report, it is a different type imagery than we have in the past. We've enjoyed an oblique imagery that is 4 sides and a straight down image, and we're going to a straight ortho image, which is just a straight down. And that's because of the cost and the ability of some of the participants, our stakeholders, I guess, to participate in the project with us. The city is not interested in that, so that pretty much shoots that deal right there anyhow, because of the finances they brought to the table last time around. I did include a spreadsheet in here. It shows the spread of the communities that would participate. I have communication out to all the communities right now, asking them to send it back on their interest and their level of support. We provided that. That level of support is based on the percentage of their taxable value, based on the, after the county and city and road department, JDOT put their monies in, the balance was spread among the townships based on their taxable value, percentage of the taxable value to the whole county on that spreadsheet. It's similar, almost within a few, it can't be more than $100 off on some of the larger townships than what they paid the last time around for aerial imagery. The thing that we are enjoying this time in the proposal is that we will be collecting building footprints. We will use our existing 2007 imagery to collect footprints of any structure that's 10 by 10 and larger, and also in-ground swimming pools and decks. That's what the assessors use. That'll have a benefit to them. And then we'll also be doing the same thing off the new imagery for 2015. And then we'll do a change analysis between 07 and 15 on buildings, pools, decks. That'll help the assessors in their job down the road and potentially provide a fairer tax base in looking at places that additions have been added that aren't on the taxable value of the property, or in some cases where they've removed structures or in-ground pools that they're being taxed for now that would be removed from the tax roll. They have a large belief that the cost will be less than the benefits received in the long run. And once that is set there, that's ongoing every year. Once we do a change analysis and they pick that up, we'll provide that back to the townships as part of this process. And hopefully in the future, we would do that in the long run with all our aerial flights, I think. It would be a good way to go. Besides, provide us another benefit of adding something to our GIS system online is being able to show building outlines in a base map that we'll be using. So it'll provide for that and for other applications too. The cost is fully covered. In the spreadsheet I presented to you, there's no guarantee every township will participate. We had all but 2 last time. I have no reason to believe that we wouldn't even pick up those 2 that didn't participate last time around. I've heard nothing but positive from the townships. They look forward. In fact, they're the ones that ask when we're going to fly next. As soon as we fly this, 2016, they'll ask me when we're going to be flying next. So it's the way it occurs with the townships and the assessors. I think it's a good flight. We've chosen a candidate. You have that in your packet, and the cost. We're flying 4-inch imagery this time over 6-inch, and I provide you a sample of 4-inch imagery in your packets. And Nick and I have been through the process of evaluating that 4-inch over the 6-inch, and the resolution is so much better, the things you can see. So it does benefit from public safety and everything else with that type of imagery. And with this vendor, we were able to acquire 4-inch for the cost of 6-inch from the other vendor we did look at. So we did look at participating with a statewide contract, but the cost on that was prohibitive to what I can get here. The vendors are a little hungry, I guess. Competition is always not bad. But we did look at participating with a statewide contract. It just didn't work out financially for us. So I don't know. We have, Mr. Overton has a copy of a contract that he's sent to the attorney that you should have before your final board meeting, for the board meeting next week.
Okay, board, we need to make a decision on this, and that needs to be moved to the full board. Any action?
I'd move the request.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? None. Unanimous vote. Thank you, board. Thank you, Scott. Next up, item E, the treasurer's report. Welcome, Karen.
Good morning.
Good morning there.
I have a couple of reports that I would like to review, and then we can I'll entertain questions as we're going through. This, the first report would be the annual report. I did send this off electronically to the Commission March 2nd, and this is a nice document that encapsulates all of the activity for fiscal year 2014. So I just wanted to take a moment and highlight some of those numbers and data. First, I have a disclaimer. I am pleased to submit this report of 2014 activity for the Treasurer's Office during the fiscal year January 1 through December 31st, 2014. This report contains data and figures reflected on a cash basis. This report is not a comprehensive annual financial report that the county prepares and files. And lastly, the data and figures contained in this report are not audited. They are unaudited as of the submission of this report. Okay, so the document starts off with kind of a summary of what the focus was for the Treasurer's Office for 2014. We really focused again on foreclosure prevention. That talks about how we did that. I'm not going to go into detail here on that unless there's questions. The next page, next section talks about being the custodian of county funds. You can see that breakdown. This is for the Treasurer's Office general fund monies. All the taxes and revenue that came in through 2014 are broken out there in this pie chart. There's other revenue as well. Total general fund revenues for 2014 were $26,295,379, and that's primarily because of the property taxes and other taxes. And total general fund expenses for 2014 was just under $122,000 for the Treasurer's Office.
Karen,
Yes.
just one question. It's got a trailer tax listed at 22,092. That's literally the tax on all modulars in the county?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, the next section talks about outputs and processing. These are just some numbers. You may find them interesting or may not, just to let you know the different things that we do and then the history there. The next section talks about the investment pool and what the goals are for the general fund investment pool. Protection and safety of principals, number one, and will always be number one. Liquidity, and then lastly, yield or return on investments. You'll see that I was able to earn just over $700,000 in interest through the investment pool last year. That's a nice little increase as compared to the previous year. I like this little chart here down at the bottom that talks about the historical comparison. What that shows is the total portfolio as compared to years past, and you'll see there, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but when you have it in front of you, that we're at or near 2009 levels there. You can see we had some better years in between 10, 11, 12, and even 13, but the size of the portfolio is more consistent as compared to 2009 year. Here's the breakdown of the investment portfolio as of December 31st, 2014. Not much change there. It generally trends between 42 million and we get up to 60 million sometimes there when we're closer to our high collection periods throughout the year. You'll see that we ended year-end at just over 47 million for the total portfolio. And the breakdown is 5% of that was short-term fixed, 10% in liquid or money market accounts, and 85%, the largest portion, in long-term fixed. Then we talk about what we do in our office as far as delinquent property tax administration. Here's a nice summary, nice background as to why we do what we do in different timelines. This graphic representation at the bottom here talks about every March 1st, we are the recipients of the uncollected delinquent taxes from the city and the townships, and this is a graphic representation of that. You'll see just in 2013, because we don't have 2014 figures yet, because it's just March 9th, so we received 10 million, just over 10 million in taxes uncollected from the local units, and that was over 11,000 parcels. Here's a nice graphic timeline that I find very useful in explaining the collection process. We also have another cycle of collection that we do in our office. It's called forfeiture. This talks about what that is, and you can see, and I wanted to point this out here, it looks like finally our numbers are heading in a little bit decrease. You can see last, or in 2013, our number was 2,588, and that we did get a decrease from last year. So I hope that trend continues. What that means is less parcels that are coming to the county delinquent. That's always a good thing. The next graph talks about the dollars attached to that. This next section talks about the different types of foreclosure prevention efforts that we have continued through 2013 and 2014. Talks about, there's some data in there, there's some, the impact, the direct impact. We have the citizens' impact, and we also have the dollar impact there. The next section talks about foreclosure, what happens after we do our 24, 25 months of collection. It shows that we foreclosed on 259 properties last year. There's the total dollar amount, just over $1 million there. It is of note, and I'll show you graphically, that that number is also decreasing. You'll see from 2012, 2013, and 2014, I like that downward slope. I hope we continue with that. The next document, or the next graphic here just is the county. I think it's important for commissioners to see where foreclosures are in their areas. I've had some questions about that in the past, so this is just a nice graphic that shows, for example, Tompkins Township, there were 4 foreclosures last year, and that one, or that I indicates it's 2 improved properties, so 2 houses, so.
Karen, we have a question.
Yes,
Go ahead.
that's correct. That's correct. Well, 18 is the total number. So that, because it does matter, I think when you're talking about property values, obviously those that have improved parcels are going to have a higher tax dollar associated with it. So I wanted to visually represent that as well. It is important to note that the state Michigan Department of Treasury has been collecting stats throughout the state of Michigan, and Jackson County has been below the state foreclosure rate. I think that's a positive. And you'll see that they've been doing this data collection from 2009, and Jackson has been lower than the statewide foreclosure rate. So that's good. Foreclosure and forfeited parcels as well.
Karen, do you have a city map by district?
I can certainly send that electronically, but no, it's not in this document. And I talked just briefly about the collection of delinquent personal property taxes. There's a chart representing that. We also do collect dog licenses. The county treasurer is responsible for managing dog licensing throughout the county. This just shows the townships that do offer dog license sales, and not all do. And then there's the graph that talks about the total number of licenses and the total dollars attached. County Treasurer's Office is also responsible for issuing passports. We are a passport facility in the county of Jackson. Talks about why that came to be. There's some history there. And we just started collecting or issuing passports in 2011. So there's some numbers and there's dollars attached to that as well. And lastly, to talk about the impacts, last year was a significant year with the financial conversion and implementation, and then just some good news savings that we were able to realize for the county through the building authority. I, as the treasurer, serve as the treasurer for the building authority, so it's always of note and importance when we can save the county dollars. Any questions on the annual report? If not, I'd like to, yes?
I have one. How are the possible tax forfeiture, how are they looking this year? How's that list?
I was going to go right into that. Thank you for the segue. So that closes out to 2014. Yes?
Mr. Alexander, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just request that the documents that were sent to us email be on the county website, on the board docs agenda. Thank you.
They will be on the website. The request has been put into the IT IT department, but they're not on the county website as of yet.
Okay, again, I would like to see them on board docs, so if an individual would like to go to board docs where all of the information is in one spot, that's great. They're there also, but I would see value in that. Thank you.
Okay, so now that we've closed out 2014, I just want to take a minute to walk through February of 2015. I'm not going to spend a lot of time about the portfolio and investments, not any significant changes there. For end of February, we were at just over 44 million. No significant changes there. There's the breakdown if you wish to see where we're investing dollars. You see this every month, the monthly pooled interest. Those are the accounts that we're allocating interest to. And those are the funds and departments that we are not allocating interest to. Okay, so let's talk a minute about where we are today. It is March 9th, and we are heading into our major deadline. March 31st every year is the time of the year where the county treasurer's office is making attempts to notify and collect all those outstanding delinquent taxes before we foreclose on those properties. So this map here reflects where we are as of the end of February. So we've had a full week in March, so this number will be a little bit different, but we're steady holding at 648 parcels. At the end of February, at the department heads meeting, I reported out that we had just over 700 parcels, so people are still actively coming in and paying those taxes to prevent foreclosure. We will be busy in our office the last 2 weeks of March, as we have been historically, people coming in, getting their taxes back, getting loans, whatever, any effort that they can do to prevent the county foreclosing on their house for non-payment of taxes. So this also gives you representation as to where the townships are and the different wards in the city, how many parcels are remaining. And again, we foreclosed on 259 last year, so we will have, I am assuming, pretty much close to that amount. Hopefully it's less, but we won't know what that firm number is going to be until March 31st. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, you said 269?
259 was what we foreclosed on last year.
Okay, thank you.
We're trying very diligently to get under that number. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, March is the time where we're getting ready to foreclose on those that we've tried to collect for 25 months. It is also the time where we get the new delinquent parcels that have been turned over from the local units. This map represents that. And it's significant, at least in my mind, to point out that last year, March 1st, we had 2,509 parcels. This March, 2,295. So that's a decrease of 214 parcels. That is a positive trend in my mind, that those numbers are going down. Remember, the less parcels that come to us, the less that we end up foreclosing on. So you can see the numbers are still pretty high. If you look at Summit Township or Blackman, the numbers are really staggering, but this is the very beginning of the process of collection for 2013 unpaid taxes. So we will hold on to those and collect for 24, 25 months. So, and those numbers will whittle down month after month. And this just shows you the numbers that are broken out if you want to have Data Geek going on. So that is all I've got to report. If there's any questions, I would like to entertain those at this time.
Administrator Overton, please.
Karen, as we had discussed the Mishner, I think it's, am I pronouncing that correct? Mishner plating or something like that? And not to get too deep in the weeds on that, but the question I have is it likely the county's going to end up with that property, or perhaps you could share with the board the situation, because I know many of them have heard from him, obviously, and are curious.
Yes. Well, today is March 9th. We will not know whether or not those taxes have been paid until after March 31st, 5 p.m. All indications, and I've talked with Mr. Michener about it, I've talked with an attorney related to the tenants that are currently residing in the property on Mechanic Street. All indications, at least from what I've heard, is that they are not going to be able to pay. For these, there's 3 different parcels that we are talking about. I have a stack of information there, and I'd be more than happy to share all that information with you. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because there is an opportunity that bankruptcy could come into play, and if that's the case, then that stops me dead in my tracks. They could come in and pay those off. So until March 31st comes, it's anyone's guess. For the 3 parcels, there's 2 on Mechanic, 1 on Angling Street, 2 are in Ward 5, 2 in Ward 1 and 1 in Ward 5. There is a total of $1.2 million outstanding, and that is because they have been in bankruptcy for a multitude of years. We have taxes going back on the 2 parcels on Mechanic Street back to 2004. So this isn't something that just happened yesterday. These are taxes that have been on our books for many a year and have not been able to be collected because of bankruptcy proceedings. They are since out of bankruptcy. They've gone through reorganization. That means that cued the treasurer's office to be able to go in and start the delinquent collection process, meaning putting them back through the system. And March 31st is the deadline. They did not, meaning anyone representing Michener, come to the January show cause hearing, which is one of their first opportunities to come to the treasurer's office to ask for an extension. They did appear, and his attorney did appear at the hearing in February, and at that time, the judge did not grant them an extension. So at this point, barring any of the other things that I've mentioned, and March 31st coming and going, that's where we are. I don't know how much other detail you want with regard to that.
Go ahead.
Just one quick follow-up, because I really don't know. The bankruptcy, does that resolve the tax issue, or is not covered in bankruptcy taxes?
Bankruptcy, all it does is puts a stay on the property. That means that I cannot legally notify them, try to contact them, try to collect. So the taxes and the penalties and the interest continue to accrue. They are not forgiven, they do not get wiped away, the magic wand does not come off and come out and make the taxes go bye-bye. That's not how that works.
Yeah, I didn't know. I know it does for banks and other things, but not for that. Okay, thank you.
Karen, with all that in mind, and we know how old the property is and what's going on there and the costs involved since the Acme property reverted to the county in dealing with a site like this, what tools are at your disposal as the county treasurer, and how can the Board of Commissioners help you work through this to try to make this back into a viable property? And is there a way to set up a payment? Does the city have to work with them? Does the state treasurer's office have to be involved? What does it take to figure out some type of mechanisms that can be used to help them get in business or stay in business, so we don't end up with this piece of property?
State statute's very clear. The process does not allow for counties to be property managers. When and if the date comes that the foreclosure comes to pass and the taxes are due and owing, we foreclose. The county becomes fee simple owner of those properties. By the state statute, we have to offer them up for public auction. Now, I'll put the caveat out there that there is a lot of history with regard to these properties. There are IRS tax liens that have been involved, and we are currently checking on the status of what that is. IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, is the only entity, if there are active liens ongoing, that could stop the foreclosure process. That is the only thing in the law that says that would that would survive foreclosure. Okay? There are DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, issues ongoing and past history with regard to these parcels. My game plan is as of March 31st, if we become the owners of that, that's going to be my first call. Contact somebody at the Department of Environmental Quality, see if they're interested in the property, see if there are any options, any resources available, because they're aware of the contamination, we are aware of the contamination. If there's any remedy to that, I do not know the answer, but that's going to be my first call when we become the owners of the property. As far as working out payment plans, the time for that is past. I have a whole history that shows the lack of payments being made. There was plenty of opportunity for the owners to make payments at any time for any amount. No efforts were made, except they received an insurance claim. There was a fire at the angling property, and they received insurance monies from that. And when they received the monies from that, they came in and made payments on the angling property. But before that, payment history was minimal. So as far as the county accepting out this property and saying, well, we're going to work with these people, and we're going to, not that I want to ever close down a viable business in our county, never. But the law is very clear with that. It says that when we foreclose, it has to be offered for public auction. So I told Mr. Overton this in our department heads meeting, that we need to have many a conversation about what the game plan is for that. I'm open to this. I'm certainly not one to want to take a contaminated property, but I don't have much choice. I have to follow the letter of the law.
Karen, are you saying that it was possible to set up a payment plan and they
It's
didn't?
always possible. Anyone can come in, and they don't have to sign a piece of paper. They can come in, they can mail their payments, they can go online. There's always an opportunity to make payments.
Is it too late? You're saying it's too late to give them a last chance to set up a
We
payment
can make
plan?
payments up until March 31st.
And if-
Absolutely.
And if they make payments, would that,
It has to be paid in full. The statute says it has to be paid in full.
okay, thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, this will very well likely be that the county will own the property and be responsible for cleanup, demolition, and all the stuff, much like some of the other properties, like I'm thinking of a hotel in particular, but,
No, that's not true.
oh, good.
We get the property, the county becomes fee simple owner of the property through adverse possession. Now, when it becomes property of the county, then we have to see what needs to be done. But I don't think we're obligated, if that's your question, to abate, clean up, remediate. I do not believe that we are obligated to do that. That's never been something that the county has had to do since I've been in office.
So you're saying we would, if I understand that correctly and reading between the lines, is we would have no choice, because no one's going to buy it, and,
You don't know that.
well, okay, true, I don't know that. But assuming no one buys it, we would sit on the property, because it'll probably cost money to clean it up.
Remember, the state has a first right of refusal. The state could come along and say, we want to do something with this property. You never know.
You never know,
The
okay.
city was awarded some dollars. The city may want to take it. You never know. Somebody may come to the public auction and think they got a great deal, and they may purchase it. I doubt it, but we're talking, 1.2 plus, but I just don't know. I can speculate till all day long. There are too many moving parts, plus we don't own the property right now. Planning is definitely of the essence, but until after March 31st, I'd caution spending a lot of time doing that.
Just to say I have concerns.
As do I. As do I.
Well, actually, Karen, you just answered it towards the end there, so it'll go through the process, the steps, state, city, county.
Correct?
Okay, so, and again, short of a miracle, it's going to end up at the county, like most things do. And yes, the city does have some money, but I don't suspect they're going to want to demo those because they're not a residential property. But on the other hand, I realize the city's part of the county, but again, it looks like this potentially will end up in our hands. And regardless of what we may or may not have to do, it's still going to be ultimately unless somebody buys it at the auction, it's ultimately going to be blight within the city, unless at some point the county does do something. Is that correct?
Yes, just like any other property we foreclose upon and doesn't get sold at auctions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Karen, it does really, it potentially could end up the same as the hotel. It could be the exact same situation.
Could be.
Okay. Karen, the amount you gave, is that the total amount due in all back taxes, fees, penalties, or is it just up to a certain year and there's more since then also, or is that everything inclusive?
What we have on our records right now are taxes, and there's 3 different parcels, so there's different tax years owing on each of the 3 parcels. So to answer your question, yes, like, for example, we do not have the 2014 taxes from the city yet. So those taxes would also come in and be tacked on to that dollar amount. So I have all of the calculations that I can certainly show you for each parcel.
But those would be separate from this action. Those could be not paid, and if they were to pay the other, then they would be good for another year anyway.
We won't be, we're foreclosing on 2012 taxes.
Okay.
2012 and, to 2004 is where they've got taxes, so it's multiple years.
One more thing, Karen.
Sure.
There's no incentive for them to pay you a dime. If they can't pay at all, why give you one thin dime? Because they're just throwing it away. You're saying that we could not set them up, take a payment against the taxes and put them on a schedule, and
Their opportunity to get an extension to pay for 1 year would have been at the January hearing, which they did not appear for, and the February hearing before Judge Wilson, they were denied an extension.
okay, thank you. Any further questions?
So in other words, they have had ample opportunity to set up a payment arrangement. They chose not to, and now it's to the point where they don't have the option to set up a payment arrangement.
That is correct. As outlined by law.
One last question. So they're being foreclosed because of taxes that they didn't pay in 2012, but now they have to pay all the taxes or be foreclosed on the 31st.
That is correct.
Okay. One last question. So if they paid their 2012 taxes, would they get them out of foreclosure?
No, sir.
So they need to pay all their taxes?
Yes, that is one of the caveats when you go into bankruptcy, and that stops our collection process. As many years as you're in, you're still responsible for the base tax plus penalties and interest that accrue. So we have taxes on the books from 2004 on one of the parcels.
Sorry. Another question. You probably, I don't know if you know the answer to this or not. Were they under the assumption that filing bankruptcy would eliminate the taxes that they owed?
I can't answer that, I don't know.
I figured.
I think people may, generally speaking, may believe that is true. I'm not sure in this case if that was the case.
Commissioner Leitner.
I'm just curious on the bankruptcy portion, if, obviously, this is an 11-year-old thing, if this is what you said, 2004. And I understand, usually, if they do reorganization, they're only in bankruptcy 3 to 5 years. And I'm curious as to whether or not the trustee, the U.S. bankruptcy trustee, ever incorporated into their plan the payments for that, and they just never made payments into their plan, or what?
That is correct.
Okay.
And in this case, we're talking about 3 properties.
That is correct.
So we have 3 properties that we potentially, unless somebody steps up to the plate, we will get. So.
Yes, sir.
So, like we had the Riverwalk, that was 1, but we're going to get 3.
Actually, the Riverwalk had 3 parcels as well.
Oh, parcels, okay. These are 3 buildings that we're talking about, correct?
Yes. Well, no, there are 2 buildings and 1 vacant lot.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to clarify, thank you. All right, as far as demolition, I vote no.
Any other questions I can answer?
Last chance, board. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next up, we have J.C. Dott. Welcome, Bob.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning.
Bob, go ahead. Good morning. I guess this is to approve the build of our glider kits that we had approved at an earlier session. We've received the glider kits. One of them's already getting built and getting ready to ship to the vendor if this gets approved. So basically, this is just to add all the equipment to the gliders that we already have.
Questions, board? Commissioner, Administrator Overton.
Hey, Bob, not to put you on the spot, but one thing that occurred to me was, how is it that we can buy parts and put a truck together for cheaper than buying a truck put together? You'd think a factory would.
If you add everything together, it really isn't cheaper. I mean, it might be minimal, but it's, the basic thing is we're using some of our old parts and stuff, but we're staying away from the emissions. And so these trucks that come in have the older emission engines and everything, and don't fall under all the new DEF and stuff like that,
Why would we be trying to stay out of the new emissions?
because it's very costly. Just one of the particulate filters or the mufflers on that, when they go bad, is like $10,000 for a muffler. And so this keeps us out of that as long as we can. And it's not a total thing. We're still buying new trucks because you just can't do all of them like this. But it's just a way of getting out of the emissions, and this is still a simpler build because all the electronics and stuff aren't in there. They're older. They're basically an old truck with a new cabin frame. So we don't have all the electronics to go through. Like if a cigarette lighter goes out on a new truck, it goes through a cab module, and it costs a lot of money, where old days it was a wire and a fuse. Yeah. But that's where the real money savings is staying away from the new emissions.
Okay, thank you.
Plus, legislation seems to be ahead of technology. Big time.
They're still allowing it right now, but at some point, they're going to even cut that, saying, okay, no more glider kits, and then we'll all be with it.
Commissioner Ellis?
Bob, isn't this style that you're doing more reliable than the newer stuff? I mean, does the new technology with all the emissions tend to put you down more with a simple thing that in the past may not have, or?
Reliability is kind of a give and take thing. Some of our new trucks are Peterbilts and Freightliners and stuff like that do go down as much as our older trucks for basically simple things. But they both go down for different reasons.
Further questions?
I'd move the request.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning. Before you, we have a request to purchase a new bench warrant vehicle for the front of the court.
This is going to be a Saturn?
It will not be a Saturn.
Just a quick question. Rick, the old car will be going down the road, so to speak?
Yes, sir, it will.
Okay.
So moved. Aye.
Thank you.
Next up is item 5, other business, needs somebody to step forward to pay the claims.
Move to pay the claims.
Support.
Have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, none. Passes unanimously. Are there other minutes to review or talk about? Reporting schedule, I believe it's facilities and, no, it's, hang on a minute here. We have finance and it's a
County Building Authority.
reporting schedule. Here we go. The County Building Authority for next month. Public comment.
It's me, I'm back. There were two things I wanted to mention. I just had a thought as I was sitting down. The Michener potential problem, issue, maybe it's an issue that the county brownfield can be involved in. Brownfields and brownfield organizations usually deal with contamination and blight removal, so that's just a thought. And then I did pass out some information about a cash handling training that the Treasurer's Office is sponsoring Friday, April 10th. We've made that available to every county employee if they're interested in attending. We're about half full right now. We're looking for 50 people. I've also extended it out regionally to Lenawee County, to Hillsdale County, to Ingham County, so we are getting some interest from local units in those counties. So just an FYI. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Commissioner comment? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.